Okay, so hello everybody. I'm here. I hope I'm not going to say your name wrong. With Lauren, is it Makayenko?
Yeah, you got it.
From Buffalo Audubon. So hi Lauren, thanks for taking
Hi.
time to talk with us. If you could just start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, what your job title is, just a little bit about what it is you do at Buffalo Audubon.
Okay. Well, my name is Lauren Makayenko, and I'm the Director of Education for Buffalo Audubon Society. I've been in that position for about 6 years, and prior to that, I worked in education jobs at both Tiff Nature Preserve and Rhinestone Woods Nature Preserve. And before that, I worked at Erie County in the Department of Environment and Planning right after I graduated from UB.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so besides that, I guess I live in Allentown with my husband and kid and 2 dogs, and I like to be outdoors a lot, but I also like to swim and I like to make stuff.
Cool. So can you tell us, if there is such a thing, what is a typical day like in your job?
You know, when you outline some questions you might be asking, I kind of laughed at typical because, and others may be saying this too as well, but in the nonprofit world, the small nonprofit environmental organization world, you kind of have to wear all the hats, not just some hats, all the hats. So while my job is overseeing all the educational aspects of the organization, from programs to volunteer management and delivering programs, staff programming, exhibitry and things like that, both inside the nature center and outside interpretation of the preserve and print materials. I also man the gift shop when needed, or woman the gift shop when needed, or I answer the phones, or I wipe down restrooms because of COVID. So it kind of is all the stuff that might take place in any small organization.
Yeah, so lots of different hats for sure. So do you actually get to go out and do programs a lot, or is your work mostly kind of behind the scenes?
I do when I can. Because of COVID, we did actually have to eliminate one of our naturalist positions, and due to that, I am delivering a few more programs. One of the other people that you're interviewing is my coworker, Tom Kerr, who delivers most of our programming, but I lean towards the young child programming, so toddler time, which is introducing young kids to the natural world and making them comfortable with their parents to explore nature. I also like to lead night hikes, so sometimes I do that. I don't do the owl prowls because I cannot call them myself, but I do like to do adaptations for nocturnal animals and how we adapt to night and vision. Lots of people are uncomfortable in the woods at night, so I try to help people feel a little bit better about that too. So not a lot, but some programming.
Very cool. So can you tell us a little bit, you mentioned some of your previous jobs, but kind of describe your path, education, experiences, kind of what led you to where you are now?
This is the part where I might exceed my time.
That's okay.
So in a nutshell, I'm what you would call a non-traditional student, right? So I went to college after high school and then dropped out. I was a telecommunications major. And because I was paying for it, I decided that I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I stopped going. And I moved out of my parents' house and I started waitressing and bartending. And I did that for several years until I went back to college and actually did that to support myself through college. I went back to UB when I was about 25 and got a degree, a BS in environmental studies and biology. And from there, my last semester of coursework was an independent study, which I found to be very valuable, in that was an environmental audit of City Hall in Buffalo. So it was looking at the energy and recycling efforts that were going on in the city at that time, talking late 90s. And then I also, because of that, there was a lot of independent writing and learning about reports and things like that that were very helpful to me to learn how to do. I also, my last semester of college ended up being in the summer. I graduated in September. So that was an internship, which I got at Erie County. And surprisingly, I had called, I mean, it was a cold call, but I'm sure that internship programs are very much more organized than they were at that time. So mine was like, here's a list of people that did internships before. You can call someone if you want. So my brain went to the one woman on the list and I called her, and her name was Tina Preston, and she worked at Environment and Planning for Erie County. And luckily enough, she had a program that was just given to her that was working with AmeriCorps members. And at that time, it was called the Buffalo Summer Youth Program. So I was working with high school kids and AmeriCorps workers to organize a habitat restoration project along the Buffalo River. So right off the bat in my internship, I was put in a position of management because Tina didn't have time to do it. And she hired me because I had people skills and I was older. So that worked for me at that time. And it really was amazing. And I burned through my internship hours, and they just decided to keep me and hired me to be a full-time paid intern at that time. So I graduated and I stayed at the county working on their Great Lakes efforts for a couple of years. And then I worked in pollution prevention, and I also worked on the radon program. So I kind of jumped around within the programs doing environmentally preferable purchasing. But I found that the things that were most interesting to me was working with students. During that time, I was approached by Sandy Geffner, who's a person who founded the organization Earth Spirit in Buffalo. He was also the advisor in the environmental studies program at UB, and he wanted a Great Lakes class at UB, and asked me if I would teach a special topics class at UB for a 3-credit course. And I was like, I only have a bachelor's degree, right? And he's like, as a special topics instructor, you don't need to have an advanced degree, at least for the first 2 years. And then if it's a formalized class, you need to bring on somebody or get your advanced degree in order to continue teaching under the auspices of the environmental studies program, which is the program I graduated from. So after a couple of years, I partnered up with a woman named Helen Domsky, who worked for New York Sea Grant, and we taught Great Lakes ecology at UB for 15 years after that. But I don't have an advanced degree. I'm kind of one of those people that slid into places on merit, I guess, or on hard work. I put myself out there in all the places I could be because I recognized that education was where I wanted to go. A position did open up that was tied to the county at TIFT. It was a grant-based program, and they hired me to put together a 4th grade curricula for around invasive species in the Erie Canal, which adheres to New York State standards, and using TIFT as the location. It included distance learning, and it included kits to schools. In that process, I learned a lot how schools and nature centers can work together. After that job, I went to Rhinestone Woods as an educator because my job at TIFT was turning more managerial at that time, and I wasn't ready to not be an educator. So I went to Rhinestone in an education position and learned a lot about being a naturalist and working in the outdoors. Learned a lot more about birds and the plants and the mushrooms and all the things, the trees, working with the great team at Rhinestone. And then TIFT called me back and said, we're hiring an experience manager. Are you ready? And at that time I was. So I went back to TIFT, and I was in that position for 6 years, leading all of the efforts at TIFT, kind of as the director, but not under that title. And the position for the director of education opened up at Buffalo Audubon. And because I had known Lauren Smith, who was the director at that time, he asked if I was interested in applying, and I did. And after an interview process, that was actually the first job I actually interviewed for.
Really?
Yeah, and it was daunting and weird. And I feel very lucky that I didn't have to do that prior.
Wow. So you've been in all sorts of different types of positions. Definitely a very
Yeah, so I can answer questions about government, nonprofit, science museum.
wow.
Yeah, Audubon.
Yeah. And do you think having all those really varied experiences has really kind of helped you to, you know, be better in this kind of a managerial position and be able to make better connections with other groups to work with your organization now?
I do. Because because I've so prior to being married and prior to having a child, I had more time on my hands to put myself in lots of different places and be like, yeah, I'm interested in doing that. So how can I help? And so beyond what my job was, I was volunteering to be on committees to organize Earth Day events or to organize cleanups or to organize, people are needed by every organization. And I strongly feel for myself that putting myself into places where everybody else that can hire me helped me. I just kept saying yes if I could. And now I'm at the point where I have to say no. I can't, which is very difficult, but
we all get to that point eventually.
There's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think is the best part of your job and what is the worst part of your job?
I think the best part of my job is either presenting program or organizing something that creates an experience for a family or a person or a school or a classroom or a teacher that opens their eyes to how amazing the outdoors are. It doesn't have to be huge. It could just be a chickadee landed in my hand and ate a sunflower seed, and that was magic, and I'll never forget that. And that happened at TIFT when I worked there many times, and you can see the light bulb and the spark flicker, and that person's life has changed. Like, I get worked up thinking about it. So yeah, that's the best part. Just interacting and being part of that world is great. It's such an amazing experience, and I'm super lucky that I get to witness that. I think the part that's the worst part, and I'm not going to go into a long list, but in nonprofit, there's often what we call mission creep, right? So you're getting pulled in a million directions, and not all of those directions make sense for what your expertise is or what you excel at. You have to do it. And sometimes it does not make sense for the organization at all, but there's somebody above you that's saying, no, I want you to do this. So you just got to do it. And I guess like an example of that would be alternative revenue streams. So when you look at a small organization and say, well, we could rent the building for this or that, and then all of a sudden you're a wedding coordinator, and that is not what I know how to do. Or you know how to do the website, so now that's your job. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I taught myself how to do that, but I don't love it. Those kind of things.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the wearing all the hats.
Yes,
without
a doubt.
When you're in a small organization, you have to be able to do a little bit of everything. So, you've kind of been all over the place in terms of your career. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you think you're kind of finally in the place where you ultimately want to stay, or is there more ahead?
Awesome question. If you had asked me this question, and other people must be answering in the same way, but if you had asked me this question when we could have met in person and not via Zoom, and I would come into your classroom, it might be different than what it is now in our COVID world. I don't know if I know. Small organizations are in peril. We're not getting the school groups coming. We're not getting the field trips. when you work in a nature preserve, you don't necessarily live in a virtual world, or organizations, offices are located in a very rural area where we don't have high-speed internet and can't live stream programming to a classroom. So anything that we do has to be recorded and live stream interacted from our own homes, where we might have higher speed. So it's confusing right now. I'd like to say that I'm in the organization that I'll end up with. My husband would like to say you need to go back to the New York State system because you're vested. So from a financial standpoint, nonprofit may not be the most lucrative of careers, but it is, in my experience, the most rewarding thing I've done. You know, I worked in government, I worked in academia, and both of those auspices were more secure for me financially, but I keep ending up in the muck of it. Not that there's not muck of it in any place you work, because there is.
Just different muck.
Yeah, it's just different muck. I have less bureaucracy, but more other stuff.
Yeah. So, Lauren, what advice would you have for a student who's interested in pursuing a career similar to what you have?
Well, I think I mentioned it a little bit before with internships, whether they're paid or unpaid. Ideally, it would be in a place where you plan on living in the future, or where you'd like to be living if you're not from Buffalo. But in Buffalo, there's a large environmental community. There are many organizations that take interns, and you can get real hands-on experience, and you can also get recommendations that could come in handy when you're applying for that next step job, or it could, in my case, lead to a job. We have a few volunteers right now who are in college at UB, and I'm so impressed by their initiative and finding the time in their busy schedules to come out to Beaver Meadow, which is 45 minutes away from where they live, and say, yes, I want to help you clean the reptile cages, or I want to help you do this program because I believe in your organization and what you're doing. And by the way, it kind of helps me with getting some experience under my belt. And it may lead to something paid, especially in the, I guess we call it the non-formal education world. So education providers, but not within the school itself. Hands-on experience is vital. And getting people to know who you are. If you're passionate about what you do, others will recognize that.
Absolutely.
And even if it's not education, find your passion. And lots of people say, do your passion on the side. I'm not those people. Like, they're like, get a good job and find your passion on the side. I'm like, if my job, the place where I am 8 to 9 hours every single day, isn't my passion, then my life is not as complete. And Robin, I think you understand that.
Oh, I do. I do indeed.
Yeah.
Sure. And yeah, I've had just.
I mean, not that we know each other that well, but I do believe, from what I know of you, that you're very passionate about what you do.
Yeah, I've had a very similar, varied background in my
a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, including a little time at Audubon. I was talking about.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But also, you know, I didn't meet you when you were at Audubon, but I met you when you were teaching with Drew. And so you brought the kids that you were teaching to Beaver Meadow to have those experiences. I think you understand a little bit of what that is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
An educator, as a fellow educator.
Yes, absolutely. And I always try to keep at least one hand in the environmental education world, because I loved it, and I don't ever want to fully give that up. And, you know, I like where I am in academia because it gives me a little freedom to do a little bit of everything too. So
yeah, I agree.
I miss wearing all the hats. Sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you one question that's kind of off script. I thought about after I sent you the question.
Okay.
But since you're in a more managerial position, I think this might be something students would benefit from hearing. If you were hiring someone for like a naturalist educator position, what kind of things would you look for? Is it more important for them to have a certain type of degree or certain types of coursework or certain types of experience? What would be the things you want to see?
I think coursework could be something that contributes, if it doesn't have anything to do with the outdoors, it might be a little bit more difficult to get a position in a job that's in the outdoors. But say you worked at a camp, right? And you did things outdoors with kids, that's a plus because you were a camp. Who'd think that a camp counselor would be a plus, but it is because, that's, we have camp at Beaver Meadow, which is an outdoor nature camp. But other things like field ecology or ornithology or anything that's connected to the natural world, and as far as coursework is concerned, would be something I look at. Obviously, interaction with the person in an interview type of experience. When I started working at TIFT, my boss, who was one of my mentors, Karen Wallace, in helping me get to where I am today, she wasn't looking for someone that excelled in education so much as someone that had a lot of questions and curiosity and wonder in the natural world, and the one thing that turns me off more than anything is somebody coming to me and saying, I'm an expert at this, because we are continually learning. And when people say you're the expert to me, I say, no, I'm not. Like, I know some stuff. I might know more than you, but I'm not an expert. Like, I don't call myself an expert in anything. I am a dabbler in the world around me. So depending on what the job is, but I think that a natural curiosity and enthusiasm for whatever position it is you're applying, and doing some research on the organization, coming in with the knowledge of what the organization's about, what their mission is, what their strategic plan might look like, and how you can contribute to that if it's available, which on many organizational websites it is, will put you ahead. Do your homework.
Awesome. That's really good advice. Well, cool. Thank you so much for talking with us. Thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate it. It was great because
I don't know, like I'm just like a rambler.
No, I think that was great. I think you gave us a lot of really great information, and so I really, really appreciate it.
And if anybody is interested in learning more about Buffalo Audubon, contact me or Tom. We are a 4-person organization right now, and you don't have to go through a lot of channels to get to the person you want to talk to.
Well, that's good to know. I know we have a bunch of students that have expressed an interest in looking for internships or volunteer opportunities. So maybe that would be a good route for them to look for those types of things.
Excellent. Give us a call, or you have my email.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lauren.
Okay. Bye, Robin.
Bye.